This episode of the Demonic Compendium contains spoilers for the following games. Viewer discretion is advised.
Wow! Did you see all those games that we're gonna be spoiling today? Jeez! Look, consider this your second warning for just general Megaton and BlazBlue spoilers. Welcome to a cross-winded new episode of the Demonic Compendium, the show where I discuss the mythology, design, and game history of your favorite Megami Tensei demons. As you all know, I consider it something of a tradition on this show that whenever a new Megami Tensei game comes out, I need to do an episode on a demon I associate with the game. Well, with today's episode, I need to not only connect it to Persona, but BlazBlue as well, plus it's the 25th episode of the show, so I should do something special there too. It is true what they say, when it rains it pours, which is fitting because today, we're talking about Susano-O. Susano-O is the god of storms and the sea in Japanese mythology, and is well known as the brother of Amaterasu, the sun goddess, and Tsukuyomi, the moon god. While all being born from Izanagi, his siblings were born from their father washing out his left and right eye respectively, while Susano-O came from the Susano-Os. Sorry. Often seen as a short-tempered trickster god, Susano-O has had something of an ongoing rivalry with his siblings, particularly Amaterasu. The two had frequent competitions with one another, but one day, Susano-O just decided he was going to decimate her rice fields, chuck a skinless pony at her stuff, and murder one of her attendants. The other gods didn't think this was as funny as he did, so they banished him from heaven. Amaterasu meanwhile pouted in a cave, and if you want more info on that, you can check out the episode I did on Ame no Uzume. While banished, Susano-O stumbled upon an elderly couple with a bit of trouble. They had already sacrificed 7 of their 8 daughters to the 8-headed snake Yamato no Orochi. In order to protect their 8th daughter, Kushinada Hime, Susano-O transformed her into a comb, stuck her in his hair, and went to kill the 8-headed snake. Inside Orochi was the sword, the Kusanagi Tsurugi, which Susano-O brought back to heaven and presented as a peace offering, allowing him to return alongside his new bride, Kushinada Hime. Susano-O's compendium entry from Persona 3 refers to him as a god of Japanese legend, born along with Amaterasu and Tsukuyomi. He was cast out for lewd behavior, but redeemed himself with heroic deeds like slaying Yamato no Orochi. Design-wise, there's almost too much to discuss about the stormy god of the sea, so I'm going to try and condense it just a little bit. Most people familiar with Susano-O probably know him from this design, which is a slight alteration on this original design. He's got long flowing hair, a cloak adorned in gale-like patterns, and a really awesome sword. What's interesting about this sword is the design seems to be based on the historic 7-tipped sword in Japanese history and mythology, which Susano-O is not really shown to wield in many of his depictions. So why does he have this sword here? Because if you look closely, you'll notice his sword in Megami Tensei actually has 8 tips, in reference to him slaying the 8-headed serpent. Susano-O's tall crown and penchant for multi-tipped blades have been incorporated into his multiple Persona designs as well, and there's been a few of them, most of which incorporate at least one of these elements into its design while also connecting it back to the character it represents, such as his Persona 4 designs having disco vibes to go along with Yosuke's habit of listening to music while he fights. Susano-O has also had multiple depictions in the Devil Children or Demi-Kid series. His original depiction had him as a Stormcloud riding bull with a snake tied around his waist. The Stormcloud as an obvious nod to him being the god of storms, the snake as a reference to his conquest over Orochi, and yes, even the cow works as well, as it comes from a Japanese festival featuring the Ushinori Gyoji or cow ride, where Susano-O rides a cow after his successful battle. Sadly, this interesting design was swapped out for a slightly cartoonish looking version of his more classic SMT design. As far as game history goes, to say that Susano-O has been a noteworthy demon in the series would be an understatement. It almost feels like there are more games he has some significant role in than ones he doesn't, but let's try and go through them by series as best we can. In Megami Tensei 2, players can complete a side quest in the Forest of Confusion that will lead them to find a small girl. This little girl reveals herself to be Susano-O and will join your party. Susano-O appeared in the original Devil Summoner in one of the side quests presented by Mary Kisaragi, Susano-O was apparently all about disguising himself back then, because at the Hikawa Shrine, players will find a man who reveals himself to be Susano-O. In Devil Summoner Raido Kuzunoha vs. the Soulless Army, Susano-O is the highest level demon in the Fury Order and appears as a boss fight in Dark Ginzucho. Raido must overcome his trial to earn the Fire Prism, one of the 4 parts of the Amatsu Kanagi. Susano-O was added to Devil Survivor Overclocked, where he appears as a part of the story on Amane's 8th day. Susano-O appears before Honda and must be defeated, which unlocks him for fusion. He also appears in Devil Survivor 2 and is unlocked for fusion by reaching Fate Rank 5 with Keita Wakui. According to the Megami Tensei Wiki, Susano-O appears as a boss battle in Majin Tensei Rondo, but I couldn't find any videos or screenshots or anything confirming this because apparently we do not talk about that game. In the Shin Megami Tensei series, Susano-O, Strange Journey, Apocalypse, okay, wow, he doesn't really do much of anything in that series. Go figure. But he more than makes up for that with his inclusion in the Persona series. Susano-O has appeared in nearly every Persona game and almost always has a significant role, for you see, Susano-O has been the ultimate persona of not 1, not 2, but 3 characters in the series. First appearing as the ultimate persona of Masao Mark Inaba in Persona 1, where his totem, Purified Water, was used to summon him, and could be obtained based on the player's choices throughout the story. He belonged to the Chariot Arcana and was known as Demo in Revelations Persona for some reason. Susano-O reappeared as an ultimate persona in Persona 4 and Persona Q Shadow of the Labyrinth, where he was part of the Magician Arcana, and was unlocked in P4 for Yosuke Hanamura by completing his social link. In Persona 4 Golden, an enhanced Susano-O known as Takahaya Susano-O can be obtained, which is a lengthened version of the god's name found in the Kojiki. And Susano-O appears one final time as an ultimate persona in Persona 5, this time as a member of the Emperor Arcana and belonging to Yusuke Kitagawa. In Persona 5, he dons the moniker of Kamu Susano-O, with Kamu simply being an archaic phrasing of God in the Japanese language, which is fitting given Yusuke's visual style in the game. Presumably, Kamu Susano-O will be making a return appearance in the upcoming Persona Q2 for the Nintendo 3DS. While not a unique ultimate persona to any one character, Susano-O does appear in Persona 3, Fess, and Portable as the ultimate persona of the Fool Arcana, and is unlocked upon making the correct choice towards the good ending of the game. He can only be fused through a special fusion of other Fool personas, and upon teaming up with Loki, the protagonist can cast the fusion spell Trickster, which casts random status ailments on all foes. Susano-O does appear in Persona 2, but the only thing worth mentioning is that despite being a Chariot Arcana persona, he has a bad affinity with every character, and no, he's not particularly useful or anything to counter the extra difficulty in training him. Susano-O also has a long-running history in the BlazBlue series, which I do not know nearly as well as Megami Tensei, and rather than doing actual research, because this episode is long enough as it is, I'm just going to recap my general understanding of the character. So basically there's this thing called the Susano-O unit, which is kinda like if the Iron Man suit was God. Anyway, at some point in the super future, this guy, Jin Kisaragi, got inside of the unit and became the character we know as Hakumen, who I guess traveled back in time at some point because he's been around since the first BlazBlue game. Then there's also this guy, Hazama, who I think was possessed by this guy, Yuki Terumi, who is like the actual person Susano-O. And I guess eventually Terumi got his hands on the Susano-O unit because in the latest game, BlazBlue Central Fiction, a character actually called Susano-O finally appeared as a playable character. So, to recap, when Jin wears the Susano-O unit, he becomes Hakumen, but when Yuki wears it, he becomes Susano-O. And man, I bet Arxis is pretty happy right now that Yosuke kept his initial persona in the fighting games, because suddenly introducing that Susano-O into the series just sounds like it would have been a massive headache. Without a doubt, Susano-O has been a major player in nearly every Megami Tensei series, and even the BlazBlue series, and I'm honored to have been able to talk about him to commemorate this milestone. And so there you have it, Susano-O, the boisterous blowhard bully that belongs in BlazBlue. Did I leave out something you thought was important? Was I just plain wrong about something? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to let me know who you'd like to see me talk about in future episodes. That's going to do it for this episode of the Demonic Compendium, and I'll see you next time. But be careful while you rest that a demon doesn't take over your body.